very much for staying with KTN News. My name is Zaki Okari. This is KTN News Desk, where we give you news as it happens. We have the latest, but let's start with the highlights.
Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anwai Guru listed as a witness on the NYS saga. And outrage over runaway corruption in Kenya. Also coming up, Tanzania works to boost tourism numbers to 1.5 million by 2017.
Well, we start here in Kenya, and police now want Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anwai Guru to be a prosecution witness in the National Youth Service, shilling a 791 million shilling scandal. The team of detectives from the Banking Fraud Investigations Unit resubmitted their file to the Director of Public Prosecutions, Keriako Tobiko, listing Waiguru as a witness. Tobiko confirmed that CID sent the file to his office on Friday, listing the Waiguru as a witness and promised to make a decision soon. Tobiko said he is also waiting for another file from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and Kenya Revenue Authority, who are also independently investigating the matter. Tobiko had sent the file back to the investigating agencies in September after an initial probe by the CID proved inactionable. While sending back the file to the CID, Tobiko said it was important that the CS records a statement. The CS was grilled in her office by the officers where she recorded her statement. Tobiko said several aspects of fraud raised in the file fell under the mandate of the EFCC. It was then that he also sent a copy to the KRA for action. KRA have also contacted the CS and other officials mentioned. President Uhuru Kenyatta made the fight against graft a priority on taking office in 2013, but critics say he has failed to sweep out corrupt officials in a nation where corruption is seen as a major obstacle to business and law enforcement. Past Kenyan governments have made similar commitments to fight corruption, only to have campaigns fizzle away. Anti-graft campaigner John Givongo says the current government could be the most corrupt yet.
By politicians has thrust corruption to the forefront of Kenyan newspapers and political dialogue. Accusations include procurement of pens worth $87 each. Kenya's first anti-corruption advisor John Givongo quit in 2005 and later blew the whistle on one of the country's biggest graft scandals.
This is the most corrupt Kenya has been since we started measuring corruption in the 90s. And I've been involved in this area for almost 20 years. This is the worst it's ever been. Before, we had corruption, serious corruption, kleptocracy. We used to call money my group, But back then, we realized now the corruption was centralized, It was organized, it was managed. Now it's a free-for-all, Everything being eaten. Everyone is eating.
Analysts say graft has choked growth in Kenya, deterred potential investors and left millions languishing in poverty. There was hope for change when Mwai Kibaki swept to power in December 2002 and his new government declared war on corruption. But not one minister was ever convicted of graft, Anglo-leasing, a scandal involving government funds being paid to shadowy foreign companies for services ranging from forgery-proof passports to naval ships and forensic laboratories, which never materialized, remains a legacy of both Moi and Kibaki's governments. Givongo, who blew the whistle on Anglo-leasing, says Kenyans have paid the ultimate price.
All the security contracts were supposed to bring us infrastructure to deal with this problem. They were eaten. Because they were eaten, Westgate, Garissa, all the grenades that are going off, that's the price that we pay.
Somali Islamic group Al-Shabaab has killed hundreds of people, including 67 during a siege in Nairobi's Westgate Mall in 2013. and an attack on a university that killed 148 people in the eastern town of Garissa this year. A teacher's strike in September left over 1 million children on their own for weeks after teachers went on strike to demand a pay increase of 60%. The courts ruled against the pay raise that the government said it could not pay. Kenya's budget deficit for the financial year starting July 1st is already forecast to be 8.7% of gross domestic product from 7.8% last year. Rampant graft and an economy some analysts say is in crisis has piled on the pressure on President Uhuru Kenyatta, who, like his predecessor, promised to be tough on corruption.
That some of our public services are rife with waste and corruption. That waste threatens the productivity we have so painfully begun to build.
Kenyatta has promised a crackdown and several ministers have been suspended as graft charges are investigated.
Where is this money going? Hii pesa naibu inaenda wapi? That's what we are requesting the president. Asinyamaze tu, kila siku watu wanalia, watu wanapiga kelele, wanasema mbona rais ananyamaza? Let him talk. Achukue action, atoe watu. Ama dissolve all cabinet. He has to appoint another. A new one ambayo Kenya watakuwa wameshukuru.
Kenya's opposition has raised concerns about a lack of accountability for millions raised through a $2 billion Eurobond issued last year. The money was in development, energy and agriculture, among other investments, but some analysts say the government is cash-strapped.
If you have a Eurobond of $2.75 billion and no one can tell us clearly where $2 billion went, no one can account for it clearly. That is an outrage that on a scale that we as Kenyans have never experienced.
Kenya's National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich played down a recent surge in interest rates, saying steady inflation and other factors were in place to ensure they came down, and denied accusations that Eurobond money had been diverted.
There are no mysterious accounts. In fact, how can a whole government run mysterious accounts? That's not even inconceivable. It's not possible, and so clearly we wanted to clarify that bit.
Transparency International ranked Kenya 136 out of 177 of the world's most corrupt countries in a corruption perception index in 2013. The country scored 26 on a scale of 0 to 100, with 0 being highly corrupt. A report by Kenya's Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission this year outlined allegations against members of parliament, senators and governors in what local media dubbed the list of shame. President Kenyatta, who came to power on a Jubilee coalition party ticket, vowed to pursue convictions in those cases, which include unreleasing.
What is unique under the Jubilee regime is that we are finding out about the scandals in advance of the election. That's also partly because we have certain constitutional bodies that are functioning as they should. The Comptroller of Budget, the Auditor General, elements of the judiciary are functioning as they should. So, it's a dark cloud with a silver lining. The politics is at the heart of corruption. But politics is what elects. Corruption is what finances politics in Kenya.
Kenyan police on Tuesday arrested a journalist who wrote about corruption at a government ministry, provoking a backlash of media groups, alleging the arrest was part of a wider government efforts to trample on free speech and media reforms. Ellen Wanjuro, KTN News.
Tanzania expects to increase tourist numbers to 1.5 million by 2017 after a marketing campaign helped boost tourism by 4% last year. The country is marketing itself to visitors frequenting its Zanzibar island and is competing with neighboring Kenya, where tourism has declined since 2013, largely due to Islamist and militant violence.
Tanzania's Zanzibar, famed for its historic buildings and white sand beaches, is a tourist magnet for hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. Many come to see attractions in the semi-autonomous Tanzanian islands like Stone Town, one of East Africa's oldest urban areas, known for its narrow winding streets where boutique hotels alternate with crumbling 19th century structures. The tropical island of 1 million people is also a World Heritage Site, but officials say the island's tourism sector is yet to grow further.
Tourism is very important to economic development of Zanzibar. As you know, we are in the island state, and we depend very highly on service industry and the more specific tourism sectors. So for us, tourism is everything.
Zanzibar is expanding its offerings and coming up with more activities for tourists, with the visits to farms in the Spice Island, where tourists can learn more about the country's spices like cloves. Zanzibar once enjoyed a near monopoly in the world markets for its cloves, which still reputedly yield the highest quality oil, flavor and aroma, but production of the spice has spilled in recent years. Traditionally, Italians make up a third of all arrivals to Zanzibar, and 40% of visitors arrive on chartered packages. Authorities are working to sell the destination to new markets.
We are receiving about 300,000 tourists from different corners of the world, especially from our main market, let's say United Kingdom, Italy, South Africa, and Germany. But for us, we don't count on number only, but we count on quality, because we believe we are very unique. We are unique in terms of our products. So we are aiming for high quality tourists, because we are a high quality destination.
But a recent disputed election has cast a shadow over Zanzibar's tourism growth plans. Tanzania held national elections on October the 31st, which included a vote for local authorities in Zanzibar, traditionally a bastion of opposition to the central government. But the election was annulled by the local election commission, citing violations. Election observers from the African Union and European Union affirmed the credibility of the voting process. On the Tanzanian mainland, which relies heavily on tourist dollars from visits to game reserves, snow-capped Mount Kilimanjaro and Indian Ocean beaches, authorities are working to convince tourists to also come and enjoy holidays here. The country is also keen to market less visited game parks in the south of the country and develop coastal beach resorts to mop up spillover from Zanzibar. Tanzania draws over 1 million tourists every year, and tourism is Tanzania's top foreign exchange earner and directly employs 500,000 people. Visitors mostly come from Britain, Germany, the United States and Italy.
First of all, we want to put more effort now on beach tourism, because we understand that our tourism is majorly wildlife tourism, but we have realized that we have so many potentials. That's not, for example, if we utilize the beach, it can be so attractive. It can be attractive to so many people, and now we want to put more emphasis on that.
Officials at the state-run Tanzania Tourist Board expect 1.5 million tourists by 2017, revised downwards from a previous projection of 2 million. Trixingado, KTN News.
The migrant crisis in Europe continues, and one refugee likens the conditions to Guantanamo, and another saying the camps are only fit for animals. Take a look.
A disturbing glimpse into life behind the barbed fences of a migrant camp in Hungary. The volunteer who secretly filmed this described the scene as refugees and migrants being fed like animals in a pen. This video comes just a couple of days after a Hungarian camerawoman was caught on film tripping up and kicking fleeing migrants. It's not the welcome they were hoping for when reaching the country, and on the border with Serbia, fear and frustration are building.
This place is for animals, not for humans. The dogs is out of the street. Me inside?
3 days, food, not good, and the baby. 3 days, no food.
I'm here 3 days.
You didn't receive any food?
The food not good for
Not good for the baby.
The language barrier and lack of information mean confusion reigns here. This woman's 57-year-old husband was taken to hospital 4 days ago with heart problems. She hasn't seen him since and has no way to contact him. Each migrant here has to wear a wristband stating where they're from. Many are suspicious about what such information will be used for.
As we gave our finger here was a problem for us.
Hungary is now a frontline state in Europe's migrant crisis. More than 175,000 have crossed the border from Serbia this year. Almost all want to travel onwards to Western Europe, but the authorities have had enough. They've built a 4-metre high fence to keep migrants out, and a new law coming into force on Tuesday makes it a criminal offence punishable by jail to cross. As security tightens around the border, those already in the country have little choice but to wait, clinging tightly to whatever hope they can find.
Now, police officers in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, are looking for Standard Group's parliamentary reporter Alphonse Shundu over a story he wrote on the Interior Ministry about questionable tenders. Shundu is facing a similar fate as Nation Media Group's parliamentary editor John Ngirachu, who was arrested Tuesday by Directorate Criminal Investigation Officers with Interior Cabinet Secretary Major General Joseph Nkaisei demanding that he discloses his sources of information in what has been seen as a fresh attack on media freedom. The arrest and police summonses have elicited outrage from within government and opposition alike, as well as church leaders and the civil society. The Committee to Protect Journalists has condemned the onslaught on media professionals and the brief detention Girachu by police on Tuesday. At the same time, the Media Council of Kenya is gravely concerned and disturbed over rising cases of harassment and intimidation of journalists. Right, Kenya is hosting a Pan-African Parliamentary Summit that seeks to consolidate Africa's agenda in the fight against climate change. The summit, held at Nairobi's Safari Park Hotel, comes just 2 weeks after a similar summit to be held in Paris, France, that will seek to have a global framework policy that hopes to identify and explore possible long-term intergovernmental and cross-border cooperation on climate change interventions.
No part of the globe is safe from the repercussions of climate change. However, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, Africa is the most vulnerable to the potential effects of climate change. Already the continent is experiencing its effects, from droughts to high food prices, from climate-forced migration to increased prevalence of diseases associated with extreme weather conditions.
Kenya believes in the multilateral process under the UNFCCC to address global climate change challenge, and therefore the outcomes of the COP21 must fully respect the objective, principles and provisions of the Convention. In the pre-2020 period, it will be critical to raise the ambition, ensure that the global temperature increase is limited below 1.5 degrees Celsius.
70 years after the liberation of the Nazi German extermination camp, survivors are mobilizing to protect the memory of the Holocaust. Here's a report on the lingering stigma of the Holocaust in Poland 70 years on.
Auschwitz-Birkenau. This is where the Nazis killed more than 1 million people, mostly Jews, during the Second World War. The camp was liberated by the Soviet Red Army 70 years ago. Now Poles bristle every time they hear reference to the Polish death camps, a phrase even used by US President Barack Obama in 2012. And the Foreign Ministry even set up a special unit to ensure such mistakes don't go unchecked.
Była bardzo wierna postawa władz komunistycznych.
Between 1945 and 1989, Poland's communist regime was very passive in its attitude regarding this defective labelling, which tended to alienate Poles against the West.
Społeczeństwa polskiego wobec społeczeństw zachodnich.
Each year, more than 1 million people visit the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum in southern Poland. Guides warn visitors not to rewrite history by identifying the camp as Polish simply due to its location.
Sometimes it's an honest mistake. There are also cases when the phrase is deliberately used to insinuate that Poles were perhaps responsible for what happened at Auschwitz, and that's a falsification of history.
The treatment of Jews in Poland during Nazi occupation is a matter of controversy. Horrifying cases have emerged of Poles killing their Jewish neighbours, especially in rural areas. But there are also thousands of documented Polish heroes who saved Jews despite the risk that their families could be put to death if the Nazis found out.
Yad Vashem in Israel awards the Righteous Among the Nations medal to non-Jews who helped save Jews during the war. The largest number of these medals has been awarded to Polish citizens, 6,454 medals. Poles constitute more than a quarter of the recipients.
Memories still haunt 91-year-old Sofia Pusmish, who spent 3 years in the camp. Some of her fellow prisoners chose suicide as a way out.
From the moment I started to write, I stopped having nightmares. It was a form of therapy.
6 million Polish citizens, half of them Jewish, died under German occupation during World War II. The Poles believe it's even more important nowadays not to misuse terms like Polish death camps to avoid misrepresenting the past. After all, as the years pass, there are fewer and fewer survivors who can bear true witness to history.
Olympics chief Thomas Bach expects Russia to comply with doping regulations entitling its athletes to compete at next year's Rio Games despite calls for the country to be banned amid allegations of state-backed cheating.
Commission recommended on Monday.
An independent commission set up by the World Anti-Doping Association WADA recommended Russia's Athletics Federation be banned from the sport following allegations of widespread corruption and collusion by Russian officials, which include covering up positive drug tests. The International Olympic Committee IOC said it wanted disciplinary procedures to be opened and warned that any competitors, coaches or officials mentioned in the WADA report who were proved to have violated doping regulations will be punished and stripped of medals. However, the IOC president will not speculate whether all Russian athletes should be banned from the 2016 Olympics.
Russia will cooperate to make progress and to be sure that Russian athletics is compliant with WADA, and this is what it needs to be in order to participate in the Olympic Games.
He has full confidence in the IAAF head Sebastian Coe in cleaning up the sport.
We are convinced that the new president Sebastian Coe will do whatever is necessary.
The IOC has provisionally suspended former global athletes head Lamine Diack, who is under investigation in France on suspicion of corruption and money laundering, and reiterated its stance that it has zero-tolerance policy against doping. But a trained lawyer said it was important that the right procedures were followed to protect clean athletes.
Right, and that's it for this edition of KTN News Desk. We finish part 1 right here at 25 minutes past 1 p.m. My name is Becky Oskari. Thank you very much for watching.